everybody. John Sviepla here for GAI Insights. Good to be back after vacation. We got Adam, Paul, and Akash bringing you the AI news, putting thoughts in your head and time of your day. All right, Akash, what's our first article?
Sure, thanks, Sean. So the first one that we have for today is titled "Why AI Will Widen the Gap Between Superstars and Everybody Else."
Yeah, Adam, what do you think of this one?
So look, this is an interesting article. The premise here is they always talk about how Gen AI is going to level the playing field, and this concept of the fact that maybe the junior employees can sort of perform at that higher level. And this is asserting that the people that have always pushed the boundaries and innovated and explored and taken advantage of the technology are going to just get further ahead with this. And it's sort of a cautionary tale about what you can do within your organization because of some of that the frictions that can cause. But honestly, for me, it didn't offer much insight. It's an interesting opinion. It wasn't really backed by much, and a lot of the guidance they give about what you can do are things like encourage everyone to experiment with AI, and it wasn't overall a very valuable or thought-provoking article for me. It's an interesting take. I don't know who he is or whether I should lend a lot of weight to his opinion, but overall, it seemed like an optional read to me.
Yeah, he mentions research and then doesn't cite any of it. Paul, what do you think?
Sorry, I clicked away here. I think for the AI leader, this is optional. You know, the AI leader is not going to get into politics on who gets elevated. It's going to be either a senior level or department level decision. You know, I do think there's a real important question on what part of this is amplified, but this is not enough research to really get into that yet.
Akash, where are you on this one?
Optional for me as well, John. But I think the title alluded to something else where it felt like the article should have been about how early experimenters with GenAI can take a lead by tinkering around with it a lot. And we have already seen it where some of the people who have been the pioneers with this, they have been not extraordinary capabilities, but gaining a lot of productivity with AI now. But this article didn't allude to that, and optional read for an AI leader.
Yeah, let me. I'm kind of on the board. Let me make the case for important just for a second here, which is that I think the fundamental mistake that users are making as they look at adoption of AI is they're looking at the averages. And you know, the Wall Street Journal actually had another article that talked about, hey, it's not AI is not in the productivity statistics yet. Yeah, the answer is yes, because a small population of leaders are actually sprinting ahead. And this whole notion of how it's going to take your very best people and amplify them, not by like 10%, but you know, you can imagine small groups of people doing the work of 10, 50, 100 or more people. And so I agree, this is a very light article and probably going to end up at optional, but I think that this notion of what AI does to an organization and to individual performance is completely mischaracterized in the vast majority. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I convincing you of importance?
Yeah, I think it just needs research. I mean, I think he's going to get she's going to get her head slammed that she sends us out without a backup, even if it's true.
All right.
John, I do think though that what you and I and others been talking about is we talk about an AI first company. Right. You know, this flies at the AI first professional. Yeah. And the same bimodal distribution we're seeing at the company level, we're starting to see at the individual level as well. Is that the leaders at the individual level are getting further ahead who adopt it. So it's a really important concept.
All righty, optional it is next.
Okay, moving on to the next one. So this is a research paper titled Agentic Context Engineering, Evolving Contexts for Self-Improving Language Models.
Yeah, I'm kind of go for it.
Sure, John. So basically, what the authors here proposes is agent context engineering, which is a framework to self-improve LLMs by using or by refining their context. So basically, refining prompts, memories, evidence rather than their model weights. So typically, in agentic environment, researchers have been doing this. They have been trying to evolve context or use context to make the multi-agent flow work. But currently, it has two major problems. Either the context that is shared is too concise, so it loses a lot of nuance, or it has a lot of context, which results in hallucinations and models or agents not working properly. So what they propose is a three-step process to keep the context current. So their architecture is, it includes a generator, a reflector, and a curator. So basically, the generator works on the existing context and it generates an output. The reflector looks at that, extracts insight, and sees whether it is working properly or not. If it's not working properly, it provides reflections, and those reflections are then curated by a curator and tagged in metadata files, which alters the context and then passes that on to further downstream the model to make it better. So I would say interesting concept, very important in agentic context, but for our AI leader right now, I think optional.
Okay, so we got an optional. Adam, I think in the pregame you're optional as well on this.
Yeah, that's right. It's fascinating stuff, and it just strikes me once again how little we really understand about how these models work. But it is fairly theoretical and on the research side, so there's little an AI leader could do to really apply these new understandings at this point.
Paul, where are you on this?
Yeah, I think it's an important concept. The leaders are in Missouri, show me land, so we need to wait till this gets to in production before we share with our leader.
Now, see, I would have said in production would be essential. Let me make the case for important. I think this is a lovely generic architecture for context passing, and it has got implemented, at least in a lab setting, what is going on here, and I think the code's available as well, right? Ankash, if I remember that right.
Right, John.
Yeah, and this notion of improvement, it's funny because as a person, in my career, I had a chance to design and deploy lots of consulting teams on different topics, whether highly technical or marketing oriented or whatever. And it's this notion of like what the core team is, what their roles are, and how you improve them over time, and then how do you pass that context on. I mean, this is essential to knowledge work, and this is not a bad beginning on that. And Vivek is noting, are we starting to abstract away even AI processes that were novel just a few months ago? I think that's a great question. But this notion of thinking of it in terms of roles in a team of agents and what that means, very powerful. And certainly, if I were running a big AI shop, I would want to have my R&D folks doing something like this. So I'm in a democratic mood here. So any supporters?
John, in light of the article, especially later with Mr. Cooper and sort of the agentic network there, I could support an important.
All right.
Well, hang on, Adam. John was out for a week on vacation, well-earned vacation. He's come back. He's a democratic mood. There's been no snark. This has got to be an AI John. What's going on here?
Yeah, I don't think it's the real John.
Yeah. The
real John, the unstressed John.
Yeah, the unstressed John.
You don't know John then.
What do you say, guys? You're deep in this thing. The important.
I can support important. Yeah, I can support important, John.
All right. 3-1. We're there. Important it is. Next.
Okay, the next one comes from Amazon, and they have introduced Amazon Quick Suite, the agentic application reshaping how work gets done.
Yeah, I think it's Quick Suite. Although, what do you think, Karen? I'm sorry, Paul, you were on this one. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon, it's a product announcement. It's optional, but it's again a lot of innovation, and I think Amazon does a good job of having really customer-driven product roadmaps and announcements. So this is clearly driven by some of the customers, but this is a product announcement, so optional.
All right, we got an optional there. Adam?
Yeah, so just a little about the product announcement. The best I could probably say is this is their answer to Copilot Studio from Microsoft, right? It seems to be very similar, a lot of complementary features. It's a bit of a catch-up. Might be important to essential if you're an Amazon shop. Specifically, it's a nice little package, but overall, it's probably optional unless you're already in that ecosystem, in which case you're probably going to hear about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. They go back saying, look, what's going
Yep.
on with these
There it
three,
is.
pilot versus enterprise versus suite. Yeah, I think that's the three-horse race right now, at least in the American models. Yeah. So Ankash, where are you on this?
I was between optional and important, John, for similar set of reasons. I think Amazon is catching up, but they are, I think, the only other player apart from Microsoft Copilot, which offer this particular product. We have the agent kit from OpenAI, but that's entirely a different product, right? So might be important from that perspective.
All right. Yeah, let's give this an optional. And but yeah, interesting. I mean, just a lovely set of capabilities, right?
Yeah.
Where
But
these,
John, I think one thing I want to highlight, I mean, it just feels like, and see if you guys agree. I mean, there's absolutely a plethora, a overflow of companies aspiring to be the quote AI framework for the enterprise. I talked yet another startup yesterday. There's probably 30, 50 startups. NAN's being used a lot. Agent Force is selling that. Every hyperscaler has theirs. So it really, and you've got people like Glean and Salesforce taking their existing stack and trying to get there. So it's going to be a real mess for the CIOs to understand, where am I going to allow, citizen coding agent work, and do I turn it on and off for some of the incumbent ISVs?
yeah, I just, it's like, I mean, for those of us who are around during the PC revolution, I mean, it's like that on steroids. It's happening faster and there are more options, right? So the question of, how much you're going to deal with the Apple stack versus the IBM stack. IBM kind of won that early, and I just think so many of these mega companies, and we have to remember just how big and profitable they are battling for the semantic operating system of an organization. And, that I think they look at it as, next era of cloud, next era of account control. I think it's, it's such a horse race. And I think organizations have to be very careful, because I think because we're going up into the inference layer, not just the data and application layer, but the real knowledge of an organization. If you don't have some strategy around own your own intelligence or sovereign AI, I think you're making a huge mistake, because the desire for lock-in by these big guys is obvious, and if you're on the receiving end of negotiating with them, good luck. So I think, to your point, Paul, it is more complicated for the AI leader and the CIO, but boy, this is just something you got to manage, right?
I mean, John, I know how many, like Bill Family, who spoke at our conference. I mean, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they probably have 7,000 applications. They probably have 150 major every one of their major applications is coming out with an agent framework.
Yeah.
And which allows the user of the application to start connecting and finding MCPs and connecting data and send it out stuff. So, I think even on a really, really small level, we continue to see that on the individual training level, companies are rolling out ChatGPT, continually turn off the ability to share GPTs outside the organization, just because they want to at least get some boundary up as they go through a learning curve for this stuff. So,
yeah, so dynamic. All right. Yeah, I think, I agree with Vivek. Not sure which model's going to be successful. All right, so we're going to give this an optional, but that's name times. Next.
Okay, moving on to the next one. This one comes from Google Cloud, and it talks about how Mr. Cooper assembled a team of AI agents to handle complex mortgage questions.
Yeah, it took me a little while to realize Mr. Cooper was a company. What do you think here, Ed?
Yeah, it took me a little while as well to figure out that Mr. Cooper was the name of the company. I was like, why are they talking about this guy and who is he? So look, this was a really interesting article, and it's about a system they call Sierra. I'm glad it has a nice pronounceable name, which stands for Coaching, Intelligent Education, and Resource Agent. I think they just need to come up with a clever name. It doesn't seem to have too much to do with what it actually does, but I think overall, I'd give this an important, potentially an essential, even though it's specifically a Google solution and use case. It gives very clear examples of how a multi-agent system can function, how different agents within that can orchestrate or own certain tools and perform certain functions, how they come together in real life examples. It is just for mortgage in this case, which is why I might say important, not essential. But even within that, there's so much you could translate from this into other use cases. There's great visual diagrams. They really lay out the scenarios. You can see how these agents can work together to solve these complex situations where, you could get into some real problems if you tried to have just one generalist be all of these specialists. So overall, I'd probably say an important read.
All right, important, Akash.
I was important on this as well, John, due to similar set of reasons that Adam mentioned.
All righty, Paul.
Let me make the case for essential and riffing a little off Adam's line. So I think the challenge maybe AI leaders is they're dealing with executives, organizations who are overwhelmed with this agentic agents everywhere. They don't know how to conceptualize. And I think we had this one, Vivek, a few days ago from the sales agent where they had an orchestrator. We talked earlier about an article. What I love about this article is that they actually have names of these agents and specifically what they do. So I think one of the important things for the AI leader is to help communicate to the rest of the organization that the future of enterprise intelligence applications are these many teams of subroutines, of people, of capabilities that's like people. And I think that's a much easier way for execs in the organization, that right there, to understand what's really going on and to actually contribute to what should be part of an evaluator or an orchestrator subroutine, rather than saying, oh, here's an AI orchestration layer and it's got 8 agents and they do all these different here. So from the transferability of this named agent at the subroutine, I argue for essential.
Yeah, it's interesting. I could see essential. I was thinking important. In my mind, I'm thinking about, usually there's a transfer of the existing paradigm to the new technology, and then there's a change, right? So if you look at the history of cinema, for example, the early movies were essentially a movie of a play, right? So you just watch the play happen, and then geniuses like Eisenstadt began to understand that the logic of cinema is actually different. So like when you see a baseball bat hit a ball, you don't have to watch it go through the air. You can just cut then to the ball breaking the window, right? Because the logic of cinema is different than the logic of the play. And I think here what we're seeing is the play, right? We're taking existing roles and we're putting them together, to create these agents. And I would say version 2 of this is going to be things that look more cinematic, right? We're going to have new kinds of agents and mixes of expertise in ways we haven't seen before. But I don't think there's any way to hop over for organizations to hop over that first transfer to existing, mental models. So in that way, I would encourage folks to do this. And we found in our research, right, people who try to jump straight to transformation, imagine new agents that can do new things and so forth, they get totally lost, right? I think you have to do the one-to-one transfer, see what that looks like, learn enough about it, and then you do the cinematic innovation on top of the play.
And John, it's similar to that. The other thing I like about so much, you and I've talked a lot about is this. This is another kind of 2.0 of, Hammer's re-engineering. And re-engineering was taking a whole set of process where you had the people do most of the intelligent work, kind of plug into a common software layer.
Right.
And this is taking more of that. There's still humans on that, but now we've got these intelligence or these cognitively powerful subroutine agents, macros, whatever you want to call it, that's now in that software layer.
Yeah.
And it has profound inputs and profound impact on design and business value comes out of it. So
yeah, the thing is that we saw in our work on billionaires, and also I was interested in it during my whole career because I thought I'd be an architect for a while. When you have a blank page, it's really hard to design anything. That's why franchises employ more people than any other business model in the world, as far as I know, with the possible exception of armies, I guess. But because people want to have component parts, right? And it's so hard to really design from scratch. I do think that AI is going to get us to design from scratch, but in the meantime, we're going to need, in architectural terms, this is like postmodern architecture. Hey, I use this, I use that, or whatever. It's not like modern architecture where I've got no constraints. And most modern architects really stink, right? And most modern buildings really stink because nobody can land all those design variables, with a blank sheet. So anyway, other thoughts? We're going to go essential on this. Essential. Yes, easily transferable. All right, Brenda. All right, BKK pushes over the edge. Not Democratic, but Republic on this one. Let's go. Essential.
Okay, moving on to the next one. So this one comes from Microsoft and it is titled How Copilot Helps One of Canada's Largest Credit Unions to Go Beyond the Numbers to Create More Personalized Service.
Yeah, we got to get Elliot Smith here, the author of this thing, to go read some of the Amazon reviews. Let's see some of the Amazon case studies. What do you think here on Coach?
This is an optional article, John. It's a bad advertisement for Copilot as well, I would say. So not a lot to say about this one,
All
but
right,
optional.
so going for a quick optional. Adam, any objections?
Yeah, no, you're spot on about taking one out of the Amazon use case cheat sheet if you actually want to demonstrate some measurable value. Probably an optional read. There's also a lot that goes on under the hood in Copilot Studio that makes some of this just sound like a really good story, but the reality of when you try and apply these things, it doesn't happen so easily.
All right. Yeah.
This is someone whose day job is working with these technologies. So thanks for being honest, Adam.
Well, I mean, Microsoft themselves say that if you have more than 20 files or objects or documents that you're trying to chat with in a SharePoint, they won't support it. So they're talking about, we had a SharePoint, we had all these files on it. It's like, yeah, you probably had 20 files.
Is that actually true, Adam? I know that ChatGPT is limited to 20. Is it the same thing in Copilot?
Yeah, for Copilot Studio, if you're going to point it like at a SharePoint site, which is all the more reason why you need something a little more robust for an enterprise solution.
Yeah, well, I think that's why they should go back to that article we were talking about before about the research on context passing, right? Anyway, all right, optional it is. Next
Okay,
one.
moving on to the last one. This one comes from the Boston Consulting Group, and it is titled How Agentic AI is Transforming Enterprise Platforms.
All right, and we assigned this to Adam because we love to torture him with the consulting papers. Go for it, Adam.
Well, actually, you didn't, John, but that's all right.
I didn't? Oh, it's Paul. Sorry. That's right.
I didn't get a chance to read this, so
Okay.
I'm ill prepared for this.
Talk to you, Adam.
Let me come back and come off mute here. All right. I was kind of on the fence between optional and important for this one. It didn't seem to add a lot to the conversation, but it is in many ways a good primer around agentic AI and some of the conversations around what it is, what you can do with it. I know there's still a lot of confusion in the market around what is an agent, what is agentic AI, how do you understand the different, what are some of the use cases and examples of things that agentic AI can do and ways that it might be used. Some of their specific sort of frameworks or dogmas around how to approach it, I don't necessarily think are the best. I'm not saying they're the worst. It's just sort of subjective in that regard. So there are some good things to take away from it, but maybe not enough to consider it an important read.
Yeah, where are you on this, Coach?
Optional as well, John. I think it talks about a lot of abstract themes, not really enough examples to support any of their points. So really an optional read.
Yeah. You know, when I used to run marketing and thought leadership at PwC, I would definitely give this optional and tell them to go back, revise and resubmit. I mean, this thing, we used to have a process that we would take interesting articles and put them through risk and quality, and they could say, could say and couldn't say, and I used to call that the dullinator. Like they had a core competency of taking an interesting story and making it dull. I think maybe this started like that, or maybe this started as a thought piece. Definitely super optional in this. These guys have data. There's no data in this. There's nothing new here. It's a relabeling of old stuff. I understand, why they do it. It's in support of a sales process, but super optional on this. And shame on BCG. They got more brains than this. All right. Come on. We got to raise.
There's some snark for you, Paul.
That was
warm up.
I'm feeling better now. He's back.
Feel better? Oh, come on, man. BCG, they pay these people. I mean, what entry-level BCG people are still making like $100,000. I mean, the people who wrote this thing, they probably spent, I don't know, $100,000 worth of labor doing this thing. This is $100,000 worth of insight? No, absolutely not. All right. Maybe not. but they spend money. All right. Last, do we have a tote board? Yes. Hey, in terms of announcements, I just want to say, having been away for 10 days, it just is breathtaking to me how much changes. I mean, I know we say it all the time, but 10 days out, I was going back and reading the essential articles, like, oh my goodness, we went to AI platforms. We have, all these new applications. It's just so much going on for AI leaders. So anyway, it's good to be back.
John, I think that's so notable. I mean, you've been on, with 450 of the 470 shows, and miss a week, you would think you'd still feel relatively easy to catch up, and just shows that incremental gap is material and explains why when we're talking to people, they're blown away that we do this and really need help on translating this tsunami of announcements to real value.
Yeah, I do think that what's interesting is you can see this industry mature, right? When we're talking about like the different kinds of agentic frameworks, the context for the operating system. I will say that this is, I really think it's incumbent on companies to be wary of these hyperscalers, because they're going to use their market power, and they're cross-subsidizing, this inference right now. I think they're selling inference below market price. And so you do not want to be locked into somebody who's selling you a product below market price that is essential to your organization if you don't have options. And I think that's a fundamental power play that's happening here, because their profitability is so great, they can cross-subsidize markets. I know a guy who was in a meeting with Jeff Bezos one time. Bezos was saying, hey, look, I can lose $1 billion a year in publishing and just eviscerate that industry, right? Because he can cross-subsidize it with AWS and other things. And I think you're seeing that here. I think you're seeing these hyperscalers basically subsidizing for market share, and then massive bets being made by sovereign wealth funds and others on folks like OpenAI that have a similar thing. OpenAI, I think they're burning about between $1 billion and $2 billion a week, right? And 15 billion, about half of a third of $1 billion, $400 million a week. So they're blowing through 50, 60 million bucks a day in subsidy for inference. And not many companies can sustain that. So I think organizations have to be super wary about what they get dependent on, because you don't want to be on the wrong side of those market power dynamics.
So what? Three announcements before we do tote board, or do you want to do tote board first, Ankash?
Yeah, Paul, we have one essential, the case study that we have from Google Cloud, and the agent context engineering one is important. For some reason, my PowerPoint is not coming up.
Great.
All right.
And the three announcements. We had a really good learning lab again last night. We had a 10-minute session on building custom GPTs and a good discussion on where they work. So that's going to be posted. The showcase presentation was for Vantic, valued vendor out there. That was one of the sponsors. Had a great use case of how AI is looking at lab results and spinning them out and getting more decision support to the clinician, less to the actual patient, but the clinician. And then third, I need to dig it up here, but Adam, if you recall, just a year ago, we had a learning lab where we did a collective time capsule, and everyone said what we thought was going to be happening in October 25. So I want to go back and find that one and pull that up. I'm kind of scared to see how wrong we were, but I suspect we probably were all underestimating it. And actually, the fourth announcement is we do continue our free training for Copilot. That's today, noon Eastern, and then ChatGPT on Thursday at noon. We have added more slots to the class. We've really had quite a bit of interest in this. So join there if you want to hone up your basic skills.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.